Welcome to Trash Talk Reverse. I'm Harry, and today I'm going to be watching the first episode of Amazon's Rings of Power. Before the first season came out, I remember getting so many ads for it on YouTube, and visually, I guess it looked nice, but I really wasn't interested in a Middle-earth related story that took place so far in the past, and especially one that Peter Jackson and the crew didn't really have anything to do with. I've heard so many mixed things about this show, with a lot of people saying it's crap, but clearly there's also a lot of people watching this expensive production. The critics seem to like it too, but I don't really trust anyone's judgment but my own. Going into this, my gut instinct is that it won't be nearly as bad as people are saying, but I also feel like I probably won't love it either, or even be interested enough to continue on. So, without further ado, let's jump into the pilot for Rings of Power.
Nothing is evil in the beginning.
All I really know about this show is that it was set somewhere when Sauron was first coming into power, I think. Hence the title Rings of Power. Is that young Galadriel? Something about the cinematography and the lighting so far just feels kind of generic. I don't think it's bad or anything, it just doesn't really evoke any type of response. Like that scene we just saw, it could have been from anywhere, not necessarily from Lord of the Rings related content.
We resisted.
Okay, that looks cool. And so did that dark shot from earlier. Again, with the way it's shot, I just think they were lacking in that department. That's interesting. I like that shot.
To the ends of the earth we hunted Sauron.
A lot of these wide shots are cool. Something about this just doesn't feel like Middle-earth.
It's colder than the rest.
See, now that's the type of cinematography I want to see. Cinematography with purpose. I think we could have done without the part where they just trek for several minutes.
There is not a soul amongst our company who yearns for home more than I. Can still feel the light of the trees on my face.
There might be an over-reliance on the music. The scenes on their own just really aren't evoking any sort of emotion. Like, they just kind of feel a bit flat to me in terms of their storytelling. I think they may have started the story in the wrong portion, because this stuff really doesn't seem to matter in the grand scheme of things. I guess that was just to show us that Galadriel's kind of a badass. She flourishes her sword too much though. Like when I'm thinking back to fight choreography by elvish characters like Legolas or Tauriel, even Thranduil, they didn't flourish their wand kind of needlessly. They did it in accordance with how this movement is going to enhance their ability to fight. Yeah, I just feel like they might have started this story way too early. Like, this stuff literally doesn't seem to matter. Who are these people? Okay, that was kind of cool. Okay, I'm liking this a lot. This should have been like 10 minutes ago. Already, this scene seems to be so much better than everything we've seen before. Like, the way it's shot, the way it's performed, and the use of the music. Yeah, this part is shot so well. Yeah, that entire Hobbit section felt like it was shot and written by somebody completely different.
Crag and crevice washing away the last remnants of our enemy.
Is this Elrond?
Harold Elrond.
Wow, I was right. That's really good casting because his voice really sounds a lot like Hugo Weaving's Elrond. This looked cool when we were coming out for the reveal, but then it seemed like they added some sort of an artificial brightener on top and then didn't increase the contrast. They cut away too early from that. They should have rested on the shot for a bit before cutting away.
I'm not some courtier to be placated by idle flattery.
Not loving how this scene is going. It's written kind of weird.
Nobody goes off trail and nobody walks alone. We have each other. We're safe.
That scene was okay. Some of the dialogue between those two was kind of like, okay, I guess. But like the nonverbal stuff was pretty good.
Spring rain over the bones of a spoilt cock.
Is that Elrond's dad? Because he also has a voice that sounds like Hugo Weaving. We're gonna have to meet Isildur at some point, right? Now that shot looks cool. Yeah, I like these wide shots. The one with the sword, that was from one of the movies, right?
I go to seek the enemy that escaped us in the north.
Are they talking about Angmar?
Evil does not sleep, Elrond. It wakes. And in the moment of our complacency, it blinds us.
Good point.
You say I have won victory over all the horrors of Middle-earth, yet you would leave them alive in me.
Only in the blessed realm can that which is broken in you be healed. Put up your sword.
Without it, what am I to be?
What you have always been. my friend.
I think this should have happened earlier in the story. The score that's playing right now kind of reminds me a bit of the Black Sails score in its instrumentation. Something about this woman just feels a bit modern. I don't know if it's the makeup or the costuming, but...
Or do you think me blind?
No, I think you talk too much, and you smell of rotten leaves.
No, I don't.
I like the music, but it doesn't seem to fit with the vibe of the show, or the scenes that it's being played over. Are these guys woodland elves? That looks cool.
The blood of those who stood with Morgoth still darkens their veins. But for 79 years you've kept watch over the men and women of Tirharad, not because of what their ancestors once did, but because of who they still are. And be grateful that you need never see them again.
One of the better crafted scenes of this episode, I feel. Because I've been having some issues with dialogue throughout this show so far, and how sometimes it can feel like it's out of place. It doesn't feel like natural Middle-earthian dialogue, but that scene was great.
Say what you wish to say.
I have said it already 100 times over, in every way but words.
That was another well-crafted moment.
Mother.
Music doesn't match what we're seeing.
Is it true about your mum? Mighty sweet back of his well the other day.
He told you that?
Maybe that's why your father run off like he's done.
My father didn't run off.
Then what happened to him? You don't even know, do you?
And once again, the dialogue in this scene is great. That looks really familiar.
She has passed beyond my sight.
Elrond said that in one of the movies, right? He has passed beyond my sight. I think he was talking about Frodo and maybe Return of the King.
Are you acquainted with the work of Lord Celebrimbor?
Yeah, I know him from the Shadow of Mordor game, Celebrimbor. He does not look like he does in the game. Then again, in the game, he's a wraith. Oh, well. Cool transition. Very cool. Great shot. This suddenly got very interesting.
Till we have touched the darkness.
That sequence was really well done. Like the suspense, you could just feel it. Wow. Okay, what a way to end that. So coming out of that, I was right. It wasn't anywhere near as bad as people said. A lot of the stuff was actually quite good. I think the parts that didn't work as much for me were the scenes with Galadriel. I think adult Galadriel's story started in the wrong place. We didn't need to see her actually leading the forces east, so it would have been better to start with her showing up at Elrond's place, telling him about the symbol she found, and then the scenes with the king and the one with Elrond advising her later could continue. The way the different threads of the ensemble were connected was pretty well done, so if they cut out that early stuff with Galadriel and hopped into the Harfoot stuff around 10 minutes into the first episode rather than 20, the pacing would have felt a lot better. As I mentioned in the reaction, I really enjoyed that first scene with the Harfoots. It was just so much better than everything that came before. As we got further in, I felt a bit more immersed and there weren't as many technical issues that stood out, as the cinematography and editing and the overall direction just seemed to get better, though again, in some scenes they still felt a bit lacking. Visuals definitely had some cool shots, but also a lot of times it just felt generic and flat, and I think lighting and color grade are key issues in those cases. For instance, the lighting in some of the elven scenes just felt a bit too bright at times, and the parts with that one elf in the south, in the villages of men, the coloring in those regions felt off. There were also some issues I had with the dialogue where the lines felt a bit out of this world, but other scenes seemed to be written really well. I expected to connect a lot more dots to the movies I know, but a lot of this feels like brand new stuff, brand new locations, which is fine, and I'm guessing that there's going to be a lot more integration later on down the line. The final third of the episode definitely picked up a lot, and the last maybe 5 to 10 minutes were really quite strong. So even though my prediction was that I wouldn't be compelled to watch another episode, I've now proven myself wrong, because that ending definitely left me interested in what's to come. The characters were all introduced with just enough intrigue to make you interested in their journeys without dumping everything on us. Though with Eleanor Brandyfoot, I felt like that conversation with the one lady felt a bit too much like they were telling us about her rather than showing us, even though in other parts of the episode they did show us that side of her. It was a long episode, but I didn't really feel that. Again, they were kind of crucified by the first 20 or so minutes. Even that opening scene I wasn't sure was entirely necessary, like it could have had a different plot and still given us the same essential dialogue between Galadriel and her brother. I had heard previously that Amazon girl bossified Galadriel, but I don't think that's the case. She's obviously not yet the person she is in the films because she's so young. This is like 2,000 years in the past, right? Her character did feel off though, leading up until that final decision, and I just think the writers weren't exactly sure on how to set up her character. It's definitely not the same Middle-earth that we know, which can take some time to get accustomed to, but having experienced both Peter Jackson's Middle-earth and Shadow of Mordor's Middle-earth, I'm open to getting to know this one. Speaking of which, I really was not expecting to hear about Celebrimbor in this show. That's a character I know from Shadow of Mordor. He's like this wraith that gets attached to the character you play as and he gives you these extra powers. I'm interested to see where the elf magic in the show comes in, apart from Elrond being able to see, because I'm not too sure about the lore on that, but the lack of magic so far definitely stood out, so this must be an aspect that gets introduced and developed further on down the line. Overall, I'll definitely be checking out the next episode and see if it can successfully build from what we've got so far. And if I make it all the way to the end of season 1, you'll get a video that covers the whole season rather than individual episode reactions. But for now, thanks for watching, and this was Trash Talk Reverse.